So what is behind the changing trends in food spending? Joining us now to shed some light on this, Jack Bobo. Jack's the director, Food Systems Institute, University of Nottingham. Welcome back to the program. And again, we always thank you for staying up late for us. Thank you so much. Okay, the fast food prices have been going up, and the fall in foot traffic shows that they may actually be too high for the average consumer, or people don't want to spend that much for what they consider something that's really not great nutritionally. Now, so have fast food restaurants pushed prices too far?
They're definitely feeling the pinch. So as was previously mentioned, 25 to 30% increase just since 2019. If we go back and look over the last decade, though, this isn't just a new trend. Some of the restaurants let's see, Popeyes, their prices are up 86% in the last decade. Restaurants like Jimmy John's up 62%, Subway 39%. And so this has been a long trend for a while. The people that are feeling the pinch most in the United States are those that are slightly lower income people making $50,000 or less. About 25% of them are saying that they're cutting back on going to fast food restaurants.
Now, do you think those people are cutting back because of the price, or are they cutting back just because if you add everything up, groceries and everything else, it's just more difficult and it may be considered a splurge to go to that place?
Yeah, well, inflation has been high for a while, and so I think everybody is feeling the pinch. But I do think that they're feeling it in particular at those fast food restaurants because they're finding that grocery stores are better value, and so I think it's really that sense of value that's driving them out of the fast food aisles and or into the grocery store aisles.
Yeah, indeed. Okay, so we know that fast food restaurants are trying to address this backlash. We heard McDonald's, at least in half the states in the U.S., are going to offer some kind of $5 value meal. And Wendy's, not to be outdone, says it's going to offer a $3 meal. I think what the guest in the story before you had to say, it makes a lot of sense. If you could go in and spend $10 on a Big Mac or get something for $5, why not just spend $5? Is this the kind of measure that could backfire in a big way?
Well, it certainly could. So I think there's a risk that somebody will choose a $5 meal over a $10 meal. But there's also a lot of loyalty involved. I mean, when you go to McDonald's, you're choosing McDonald's because that's where you want to be. And if you're choosing a Big Mac, well, that's probably the sandwich that you really like. McDonald's has been offering value deals for decades, and that hasn't necessarily cut into this. So I think it's a risk. I'm sure that's why they're doing this as a 1-month test to see if it increases foot traffic, rather than just making a complete change.
Okay, I want to find out about what's going on in the UK as well. This issue of rising prices, especially fast food, we know it's here in the US, but what are you seeing in Europe, in the UK? Are other countries feeling this? Are they steering away from fast food?
So I think that we're definitely feeling it here in the UK and a lot of other places. So there's definitely been a decline in fast food sales in many parts of the world. I think inflation has been the biggest driver, but I do think that we see a little bit more dynamic changes in a place like the UK. So yeah, there's a little less sales, but we're actually seeing more healthier options on menus in the last couple of years as well. And so it's actually a more dynamic time where more innovation is coming, more switching to digital, something that's been happening in the United States for a while is occurring. So it's a little bit more of a dynamic market and not necessarily that race to the bottom that cheaper is the only thing. They're also looking at quality and healthfulness in their food.
In the U.S., sadly, obesity is a time-honored tradition. So do you think it's actually a good thing that people will eat less fast food and turn to healthier options? Or is price going to be an issue there as well?
Well, so there's certainly been, price inflation even in the grocery store. But when I was thinking about this issue, I do think that there's a potential silver lining when it comes to healthy eating. It's a lot more expensive to go out to a fast food restaurant than to eat at home. And so your dollar does go farther and you can afford to buy a little bit more healthy food in a grocery store. I think so there has to be some benefits. I think the downside is that many consumers are working long hours, they're working two jobs, they're taking care of kids, and so they may not have the luxury of cooking that food. And so I'm particularly concerned about the consumers who don't have time to spend eating
Right, right.
healthier because they have to because of the budget. We're often time starved as well.
It's like you can look at my notes because that is what my next question. Look, a lot of families in the U.S. need both people in the household need to work to make ends meet. You get home after a 50-hour week, you're tired. It's easy to stop and get a pizza, McDonald's, Wendy's, whatever. So what is next for fast food? Do you think that there's some kind of step that could be taken, maybe make it a little healthier, keep it easier on the families to scoop up whatever they need to feed the whole brood?
Well, I think that government at some point is going to have to figure out how to step in. You mentioned the issue of obesity. 42% of Americans are obese, 75% are overweight or obese. It could be as many as 50% by 2030. We see the rise of these new GLP-1 drugs like Ozempic, and so that could really shift this landscape. But fundamentally, for the government, the cost of obesity in America is a $1 trillion annual problem. And so we're spending $1 trillion to make sick people a little less sick instead of spending that money on keeping people healthy. And so I think restaurants need to figure out how to become part of that solution, and instead of being viewed as part of the problem.